Behind me here, I have the NV4500, and it is outfitted with the correct main shaft so that it mates with the Toyota transfer case. The main shaft has to be splined to 19 splines so that it will fit in the Toyota transfer case, or you can go with the rock bug adapter and do some sort of maneuvering with the bearing inside the transfer case. But we went with Dustin's kit, so this is just a fully rebuilt transmission. Paid about $12.50 for the rebuilt transmission, and it is ready to go. So before I put it in, I wanted to make a video showing how this all works together. It's a little confusing, and this is where the devil's in the details. This is where the kit comes together and works with the 80 series LandCruiser. So here's the transmission. This is rebuilt, so new bearings, synchros, all the good stuff. This is the input shaft, this is the output shaft. So this is the area that has been machined down to 19 splines, usually a 28 spline output for the Dodge. So this will work with the Toyota transfer case. This is a custom bracket for your transfer case shifter. It is made by Dustin at powertrainintegration.com, and it bolts right into some of these shift fork bolts that go on top of the case here. So we'll go over that once the transmission's in the truck. The goal is to get this mounted and put into the LandCruiser so that the engine is sitting right, and then we can get all of our mounting figured out. So I had to make a bracket because they don't sell this bracket anymore that goes from the transmission here, this piece of flat steel here, onto the transmission mount. And then here is a custom made bracket that will go on the Toyota Crossmember. It'll all make a lot more sense once it's in the truck. So let's get it underneath the truck and get it up on the transmission stand. And just as I thought, because of the shifter area where it goes into the forks, this is not going to fit underneath our OEM step board, so this is either gonna have to come off or we can lift the truck. I'm still trying to decide what I wanna do. We've also installed our clutch fork and our throwout bearing into the bell housing. So there's a little clip here that secures it to this little side. There's a little plunger underneath. And then this is where the slave cylinder coming from the master cylinder would go. We'll go ahead and grease that up so that it fits in there nicely and we don't have any issues with having to shove the transmission in too hard. Even though, let's be honest, this is gonna be quite a feat trying to get this thing in there by myself. This was definitely not easy getting the transmission in, but what I did is I took the bell housing, put that on the adapter plate, and then put the NV4500 input shaft into the clutch assembly. Another great example why having a two-post lift and taking the body off would be a great idea when you're doing this, but we got it in and we've mounted it on our OEM Toyota Crossmember with the adapter plate right here. Now we need to put the actual adapter plate on the NV4500. So I've marked where I need to cut with a paint pen on the firewall so that we have enough room to install the shifter and thinking about sealing this whole area in the cab. So I'm gonna cut through this area with the angle grinder. We have a rubber glove over where the shifter goes into the transmission. So we're gonna break out the grinder and cut this part off. All right, so the adapter plate is mated to the NV4500 via these 6 bolts here. We have our seal pressed into our adapter plate so that we won't get any oil past this area here. And now we have the existing bolt holes to mate the Toyota transfer case to. But first we need to put our mount. I ended up just forking over the cash and buying the actual mount. You do have to modify it a little bit. I cut this section off here so it would clear the adapter plate, as well as these 2 arms here. One of them is for an exhaust bracket, like a hanger, and then one of them is for, I don't know, something else for the Dodge, but we'll bolt this up next. And now we can place our transmission mount into place with the existing bracket for the NV4500 and also our custom adapter plate for the Toyota Crossmember. So this will just slide into here. That bracket I ended up just purchasing has welded holes on the back side, so these just thread in. So we have this on a transmission jack right now so that we can get the clearance necessary in order to line up these bolts and then secure it into place. We're almost ready to put the transfer case into position, but on the other side, which is underneath here, there are two holes for the crossmember bolts, and they're threaded on the other side of this, so we'll go ahead and place those in. So I'm just loosely tightening these, and then I'm going to lower the transmission stand so that I don't cross thread anything, because we're fighting against the weight of the engine here. All right, so we're all tightened down now and ready to install our transfer case. So we've already gone and put all of our wiring harness, except for the part that will connect to the main part of the harness, on the transfer case itself, so that we don't have to reach up under it in the tunnel and try and put them on by hand. I'm going to pull this under, then bench press it up onto that jack. This is some sort of an anti-vibration device, and it broke just like the one in the last transfer case Cummins swap I did, so I'm just going to remove that, not worry about it. All right, well, the transfer case is in. It was not easy, and it required basically just getting it pushed underneath the truck on a piece of cardboard and then using the transmission jack in order to get it into place, but it is mated up to the adapter plate. The NV4500 existing bolts were used in order to secure it. All the wiring is connected. We finally figured out an issue to our blow-by with this Evil Energy catch can. Huge thanks to Evil Energy for sending this out and getting our issue with our blow-by figured out. So this will just drain periodically upon collecting enough oil. This is an AN fitting line going up to the tappet cover. You've got your vehicle speed sensor here going to the back of the transfer case, and then a ground wire that connects to the body. We put both of our drive lines in. This rear drive line is a little too long, so it's going to need to be shortened, as you can see. So that is going to have to be shortened. We did that on the last one, and front drive shaft is in and connected. This obviously just goes to the front part of the Toyota transfer case here. Little tough to get it in. You have to get the vehicle rolling. Here's the front drive shaft going to the front axle housing, of course. So now we are ready to potentially start this thing. Show you some other things I've been fiddling with. Being that this is a stock lift, I had to make a 3/8 inch bracket to extend the sway bar a little bit lower in order to clear the bell housing on the transmission. Should be plenty of clearance. If we step into the cab here, we can see our shifter assemblies, nice and uniform. So this is a shifter out of a 1982 pickup, Toyota pickup. And we got a steel spacer and welded it to the nut that will thread onto this transmission shifter. I just bought aftermarket. The Dodge one will not clear this bezel, and it's just too long. So I do like the way this looks. We've installed our transfer case shifter onto our bracket. We did need to get a 1-inch spacer. I contacted Dustin, and he's going to be including those in the kits for you guys in case you want to use them. But we have full operation of our shifters now, so we're in high currently. It'll be neutral, low gear, go back to neutral, and then high gear. Then if we look at our transmission, we're in neutral, and then we'll go to first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and reverse. So that's a win there. We're gonna seal up this transmission tunnel soon. We're just kind of trying some ideas. I've got a piece of steel with a couple Spectre rubber boots off Amazon, and we're trying to use the pre-existing bolt holes that would go on the sealing plate for the automatic transmission. So this should work out pretty well. So we'll use these 3 bolts here and we drilled a couple holes up top, and we'll use some kill mat or something like that in order to seal for any water or hopefully sound getting into the cab, just like we did on the last one. Wait a minute, that doesn't go there, does it? This is a clutch pedal out of a, I don't even know, I think it was an 82 pickup, and we had to bend it in order to get the placement we wanted, but it does almost look like it is a manual from the factory that way. And it's gonna be really difficult to get up in there, but we cut the rod off of the master cylinder for the Dodge, and we used a bunch of brackets and threaded rod in order to get the throw or the engagement for the clutch needed. I have confirmed that this does work. We do have a clutch pedal coming from Matt Bloom, who ordered it from United Arab Emirates, and we may end up going with that if this doesn't work out, but this is actually, I'm sorry, from a 4Runner. So a Tacoma 4Runner clutch pedal does work. I have confirmed this, and yeah, that'll work for the time being. On the engine side of things, we used a little throttle cable assembly that goes on the VE pump here. That works pretty well, and we have a custom bracket from Dustin going in the back of this VE pump here, which works with this Toyota throttle cable. I'm not happy with using the entire length of the throttle cable because it's super long and it's having to basically just be sandwiched underneath the intercooler piping. Not a huge fan of that, but I wanted to use these two nuts in order to get the right feel on the gas pedal, obviously. So we're 1 3/4 inches coming off of the thermostat housing for the Dodge, going into a 1.5 inch to our radiator. And then we've gone with a 1.5 inch going to our water outlet on the accessory bracket. Turbo is off again. We're still facing turbo woes. This turbo has a couple of bad threads on 2 of these larger exhaust bolts here, and I am actually just gonna head out down to Hermiston, Oregon today to pick up a new HX35, well, not a new one, a new to me, used HX35, which should have good threads. Unfortunately, this one wasn't sealing properly, and we need to get that on because we have a full exhaust system. This is the first piece that will be going on, and this bolts directly to the HX35. We weren't able to get those bolt holes in. As you can see, we're still spewing a little bit of oil out of the turbo. We need to seat the rings before we start diagnosing oil leaks, but this is one piece. This is another piece that we'll bolt in. We'll get into that later. So we just got back from Hermiston, Oregon and got our new turbo. This is the old turbo. This one's a little bit different, has a different functioning wastegate actuator, but we're just going to weld, or we did weld, the wastegate shut. So we should be able to build around 30 to 40, 35 pounds of boost with it closed like that. We didn't have a way of getting our wastegate hooked up to the intake because this turbo doesn't have any fitting for the wastegate to go back into the intake like this one does. So I could have swapped out that housing and put it on here, but we just welded it shut. We will see whether or not that causes issues, but for now, we're ready to put that turbo in and get going. We've finished our shifters and we don't have the console in. We gotta figure out how we're going to use some ABS plastic with some boots in order to make it look nice, but as far as the transmission tunnel is concerned, it is sealed, and I think it actually looks pretty good. These are, again, just a couple Spectre shift boots off Amazon, and an OEM 5-speed knob, and then our original transfer case knob. So we have complete operation of all of our shifters. So we're in neutral, high, neutral, low, go back to high, first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth, and reverse. Now our exhaust system is fully finished, so we have this custom 80 series Cummins. Coming off the back of the HX35 here, there is a flex pipe going down towards the bell housing. Comes out by the bell housing here, right next to the drive shaft. We've got about 3/8 of an inch clearance. Kind of worries me a little bit, but yeah, oh well, we'll see. Time will tell. There is a plate that he puts in this kit in order to mount to the bottom of the cross member here, and that secures this first part of the exhaust on a hanger, which is utilizing the OEM Toyota little, I think they're called cushions or the mounts. So that's pretty cool. After that bracket, it comes over the cross member, goes into a muffler here with a couple different clamps. He said that you can use just a piece of straight pipe, but most people opt to just keep the muffler in. This engine's pretty noisy as it is. So here's the rear drive shaft. It comes up to this original Toyota mount, and I actually threw this mount away because if you remember, my exhaust broke off on the way to the top of a mountain to propose, and yeah, I just threw it away. So it's hard to get up in there, but there is another rubber mount right there on top of that bracket that has a hanger on the exhaust, which secures it there. Then that'll go up and over the rear cross member into another exhaust clamp. And that comes out at the rear of the vehicle here and bends over towards the mud flap and comes out with a slight angle on the exhaust, which looks cool, and goes out to the passenger side. Then up in here, we have our last bracket, and there is a little rubber mount up in there. So all three rubber mounts are used.
Alright guys, well, that's going to pretty much conclude this video. We've gotten it pretty much to where we're ready to drive it. So next video will be the first drive. Super exciting. We do need to seat the rings before we can diagnose all the rest of the little things as far as tuning the injection pump and all the rest, but I feel like we got a solid amount of work done, completed this video, and yeah, super stoked to be able to drive this thing. So I'm gonna be testing it out this week, and then we'll make a nice cinematic video of the first drive for you guys. So as always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next one.